What's up, everyone? I thought I should have a beer. It's my Friday night, even though it's Thursday, because I'm brewing tomorrow. Anyway, I'm gonna show you guys one way that you can reuse your yeast tonight. It's not the only way, maybe not the best way, but you can save $5 to $6 a batch if you just use it one time for the next batch. So you're going to save a little bit of money, and you're going to for sure have plenty of yeast for whatever beer that it is that you're brewing. This is what I got on tap right now: a cider imperial steam beer, a pale route beer. That was kind of something I came up with. And then this is actually made by Swirling Brewing Company. It's their AHA Rally Imperial Brown that they gave to us, and then we can ferment however we want. But yeah, hopefully by the end of the night I'm going to rack a beer out of the primary, and we'll have a nice growler full of yeast to use. You got your Flaming Lips are going to cover the whole Dark Side of the Moon at Bonnaroo in 2010. Already been done. You're going to want to boil 2 to 3 pints of water for at least 10 minutes to get it good and sanitized. We're going to... Pretty funny, huh? We're going to use that later in the process, and it will have to cool down after this, so make sure you do it ahead of time. Because it's winter here and nice and chilly in good old St. Paul, this Helles has been 42 degrees, so that means is, well, after it's been done fermenting for a couple days. So as you can see, it has a nice compacted yeast cake, which will be good for harvesting. Alright, there's a couple things you want to think about when you're going to be making a batch of beer to use the yeast cake in the next batch or the next 2 batches. You generally want to first of all think of kind of a lighter color to darker, in case you end up making a darker beer first and you end up harvesting a lot of the beer color. Even a little bit of darker color could affect, then if you're making a lighter beer second, could make that a little bit darker than you want. The second thing is you normally want to make your lower gravity beer first. Especially if you're going to make like a barley wine imperial stout or a really big IPA or something, you want to have a lot of yeast for that. So you might make like a pale ale or a bitter or just a lower gravity, this like, a Helles or whatever first. Well, that's a lager yeast, but you know what I'm saying. And then have that yeast for the higher gravity beer. In this case, there's even another consideration. I'm making 2 beers that are both about 1050. I'm making a Helles and a Pilsner, 2 lagers. So I made the Helles first because it has less hops. I'm going to have 5 ounces of hops in the Pilsner, so if I used that yeast cake, it might have more hop trube. So, this time I only have 1 ounce of hops in the Helles, and then I'm going to use this yeast cake, which will include a little bit of the trube, in the Pilsner. So anyway, there's just a few things to think about, but yeah, it always works for me, and if you practice good sanitation and you kind of do this method that I do, you're not going to have any problems. I'm getting down there now. The way I do it is I try to get as much beer out of the carboy as I can, especially if I'm going to use the yeast. My thought is I just don't want the beer from this batch mixing with the other batch. I'd rather just have the water, which is the water that we boiled, and we'll see that in a second. It's not a huge deal. Of course, you want to get as much beer as you can into your secondary, but I use a 2x4 under the side of the carboy. I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of tipped up. Yeah, you can see on the left side, you can see it sticking out of there, and that just helps me angle it down right here. And I don't go too crazy. I don't want to suck up a lot of the yeast for clarity reasons into the secondary, but now I have another thing going on. My carboy, my secondary, is actually getting pretty full. I had just over 5 gallons, so I pretty much have to pull the plug here just for that reason. But there's only a little bit here. That's only actually like 3-4 ounces, so that's alright. Actually, I can just keep this rolling. Let's just keep it rolling. What we'll do here quick, as long as we got the thing all live, action 5. I've got my sanitized funnel, which we'll use for the pouring it into the growler, but we'll also just use it. Now here's the water that's been sitting in a 42-degree room, so it's totally cooled down. And you might not need all of it. You really, what you're doing is you just need enough of it to be able to loosen the yeast on the bottom. Now this is, I only poured about a pint or so in there. So now I'm going to try to swirl it up. Now I didn't film it, but I've actually been swirling this thing for, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes. A little bit. It was really cold, so it was really stuck on there, of course, but I actually ended up adding a little more water in there just to make it a little bit easier to get the stuff off the bottom. But it's fine. And the amount of yeast I'm collecting here is way, way more than I need, and I may or may not even pitch all of it. I can't even, well, yeah, that's pretty much everything in my primary. Now, what'll happen is this will stratify, and if you want to, what you can do is, as it settles, the yeast stays on the top, I believe. You can look at my website, donosborne.com. I have another example of this in pictures, but I believe what happens is the junk stuff you don't want settles out first, and the more white stuff will stay on the top when you see a couple layers. So what you can do is pour that stuff off into another container where you might have dumped a little pre-boiled and cooled water in, and then what you're doing is you're sort of washing the yeast and making it a little more pure. But basically, I'm all set. I'm going to cover this with foil, and I'm going to put it in the fridge. I'm going to brew tomorrow, and I'll dump, you know, this is almost a half gallon, so I won't dump this whole thing in there, but, you know, I'll dump maybe a quarter of this, or half of this in there, and it'll be just plenty of yeast to ferment, basically any beer that you're going to make. So, give it a try, save yourself some money, reuse yeast, and happy brewing to you.